All right, so instead of entering into a consent decree with the Department of Justice, the city of Memphis has their own idea now to create a 9-member task force, and that's going to basically oversee police reform. And this is all stemming from the horrible beating death of Tyree Nichols and the DOJ's investigation of their patterns and practices and finding that MPD was in violation of people's civil rights. So let's get into it. We do have a list here of some of the 9 members that were appointed. It's going to be headed by former federal judge Bernice Donald. Some of those names are on now. It's a total of 9 members. There we go. Those are the rest of the names. So I just want to go ahead and ask Otis, you can start us off. Any of these particular names stick out to you?
Oh, sure. And they're well-known people in the community. I mean, and you start with Judge Donald. I mean, she's been a judge at almost every level. Since 1982, she first got elected to General Sessions Court and then has gone to bankruptcy, federal judge, appeals court judge. I mean, she's top drawer here. And to have her be the chair of this task force speaks volumes, first of all, about her integrity and how they want this to be a process that people can embrace or at least believe that is highly credible. Plus, you got Tony Armstrong, a former police director, who's a part of it. You got Keith Norman, a pastor. You've got Rosalind Nichols, who's also a pastor in town. And you got Daniel Keel, who is over at the law school as a law professor. I mean, these are quality people. But here's the deal here. They can do a great job here. And I think they will do a great job of looking into what needs to happen in terms of reforms with the police department. But it's going to be up to the police department itself, with input from Mayor Paul Young, to see if those recommendations are indeed implemented. We know now that the Justice Department is not going to get involved in this. A new administration has come in and they don't really care about much of this. So it's going to be up to the city and it's going to be up to the police department to agree to enact some of these reforms if the public is going to believe there's going to be meaningful change in the police department.
Absolutely, and you did touch on some of the kind of the work that some of these members are in. So former law enforcement leaders, of course, pastors, law professors. I really actually thought the mental health experts stuck out to me.
Right.
And I think that's really important because that's Dr. Audrey Townsell. I feel like there's a lot of mental health aspects when we talk about police reform and behavioral issues and all of that.
Especially with the youth, because that was part of the report from the Justice Department.
So there is a pretty wide variety of expertise made up in this 9-member task force. Do any of the names or any of them stick out to you?
I mean, I think it's certainly interesting. It's very notable that Amber Sherman, a local activist, reform advocate, is on the committee. It's certainly drawing attention from the right, who are not a big fan. Some on the right are not a big fan of Amber. At the same time, one of the things that I would like to point out, and I think is going to be interesting, and Otis just touched on it, is like this exists outside the legal system. Not entering into a consent decree means no federal judge is the final arbiter here.
Right.
This is really up to the police department. It's up to the mayor, who oversees the police department, to implement these things. And also, to the point I made earlier, the city of Memphis isn't rich with resources. They're not flush with cash. And so when you read that scathing DOJ report, and it is a chilling report, you see that the police are a Band-Aid on many of the ills that afflict Memphis, Tennessee, right? And you mentioned mental health a second ago, Pepper. And that, mental health is, the police are responding to these calls, and they're not necessarily the people that are equipped for that.
That's right.
And so if the task force comes back, say, and I'm just speculating here, we need a better unit or some entity to help those who are suffering from mental illness, how do we pay for that? Right. That's the real question, because a great piece of paper can fall and get dusty for lack of resources.
That's exactly right.
And how do you think that the public's input should be on this? Should this task force hold meetings every month, or just how do you all feel that the public it'll help bridge the gap between law enforcement and their trust in, or the public's trust in law enforcement?
Well, I think that they will meet among themselves, first of all, obviously get very organized and set up a plan for how they are going to go about their work. I would expect at some point that there would be some public meetings, although, you know, if the meetings that we had with the school board is any indication, we don't need a bunch of arguing going on there. What we need are tangible solutions, tangible expectations about how the police department should go about its reforms. If that happens, then I think the task force will have been successful. But Sam hit the nail on the head. Again, it's up to the police department to agree to try to enact some of these. And if it's too costly, that's one thing. But if it's not, a lot of it is just a matter of training and a matter of a mindset change here that you are a police officer to protect and serve and not to harass and beat up people. And so we'll see what happens with that.
In the past, when the city has appointed an oversight committee, how well do those actually make a difference?
Not very much. Not really. I mean,
we had the Reimagine Policing Task
Yeah.
Force and report following the death of George Floyd that Memphis Mayor Jim Strickland, former Memphis Mayor Jim Strickland implemented. A lot of those things maybe didn't happen, and then we had, in the wake of that, you know, not so long after it, we had the tragic death of Tyree Nichols, right? So reports are one thing. It's really a matter, to Otis's point, of what is happening on the ground, what is the culture, and you know that's really going to be it.
yeah, I agree.
All right. Well, thank you, gentlemen. I think that does it for that topic. When we come back, MSCS is trying to clean up their mess, and we're going to talk about how the school board has now a new governance plan and what all that means.